Hi, everyone. It's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy. Welcome to Conversations about Caregiving. On a regular basis, we gather with family caregivers and former family caregivers to talk about a theme, an issue, a challenge, a situation that involves caregiving. And today we're going to talk about what it's like to be an only child caring for aging parents. And I'm thrilled to have three panelists with me today. I'm going to tell you their first names and then we're going to do a round of introductions. So Sharon is here with us today. Welcome, Sharon. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Gary's here too. Hi, Gary. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
And Jennifer's here. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's do quick introductions. We'll start with you, Sharon. So tell us about your situation caring for parents, and then tell us about a little bit about yourself, including your work in the world.
Sure. So I am an only child caregiver. It was for both my parents. Probably starting in about 2015, they started to kind of go downhill health-wise. And so for almost 10 years, my mother passed away 2 years ago. And I continue to be a caregiver for my 98-year-old father. And yeah, the aging in place, like we were talking about earlier, Gary, they have been in assisted living now for 6 years because of various health things. And but the caregiving doesn't stop when that happens. In fact, I'm just moving my dad again after only being at one for 8 weeks because of the horrible care. It was supposed to be the best place in Madison. So just lots of that lived experience. And I'm also a former teacher and a parent coach. So everything that you are doing, Denise, is so fascinating to me because a lot of the people I coach are in the sandwich generation and are caregiving for their own children and elderly parents. And so just so much to unpack and talk about. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. I love that we're going to unpack together.
Yes.
Okay, Gary, tell us a little bit about your caregiving situation. Tell us about what work you do in the world.
Hi. So, everyone, I'm Gary, and I live in Boston, and I've been caregiving, assisting my mom now for almost 20 years since my dad passed. Um, and I work at Bunker Hill Community College in Boston in the Human Resources Department. And I try to make some sense of all of this, do something with it that was coming back to me. I went back to school in 2009 and I got, well, because all I could have the time to do got as far as a certificate in graduate studies in gerontology, aging services management. And someone asked me, what are you doing with it? What are you going to do with it? I said, I use it every day. I try to, use the information I learn. I try to apply it. But my mom's going to be 96 and she's still cognitively there. But now I'm at the point that it's getting sad seeing you get to the point you say she's 96. Now it's beyond being a gift, it's a rarity. And I am an only child. And it's been taking its toll because I mean, I feel emotionally, financially, and a lot of ways. And I don't want to say I'm thinking like, when is this going to end or how's it going to end? Because I don't want to lose my mom, but I don't want to lose my life. I mean, in a figurative way either. So
That's spot on, Gary. Absolutely spot
did
on.
anything I said make sense? Okay.
Yes, it all made sense. And I think we all have that thought. What I think about that helps me with that perspective was, when is the pain and suffering going to end? It's really the end of pain and suffering for ourselves and our carees, because we don't want to be in a situation where we watch our carees suffer and we don't want to suffer. And we're really waiting for the end of the suffering. Jennifer, tell us a little bit about your past caregiving situation and your work in the world.
Yes, I'm Jennifer. I'm in Southern California, and I'm a former family caregiver for both my parents and my grandfather. I moved in with my grandfather lived with him for the last 5 or 6 years of his life. He died when he was 94. And I'd like to believe that we made his last 5 years amazing. And my father had a kidney disease from Agent Orange exposure. And so we went through a kidney transplant, and 6 months later, he got an infection. And that ultimately took him. So it wasn't the transplant, but it was the medication that he had to take that prevented him from fighting it. So very bittersweet. And then my mother, most recently, I took care of her all of 2020 in my home. We renovated to bring her here and have her live with us. And while doing that, I was also raising a newborn baby that we have now adopted, and he's 5. So lots going on. I'm also a certified life coach and a certified caregiving consultant and educator, and help caregivers navigate all the roller coaster that happens with caregiving. So, and I'm actually thinking only children might be a good focus. I never thought of it, but
Oh, yes, it is. It's a great niche. And I just want to just do a little shout out. If you're thinking about having a business or a service that supports family caregivers, we're doing a special event the second Saturday in May that starts at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And we're going to share insights about how to structure a business to serve family caregivers. And we talk about niche. What's your niche? So
Yeah.
Jennifer's going to join. So we'll continue the conversation about niche then too as well. Okay. It's always so hard to know where to start, because going back to your analogy of unpacking, Sharon, like, what do you unpack first? Do we go to the underwear? Do we go to the rolled socks? Do we go to the dress shirt? So let's start with the dress shirt, and then we'll go to something that's a little harder, which before we really start to get into the dirty laundry piece of this. Okay. I'm curious what you guys think is something that might be misunderstood or overlooked about the experience that you have as an only child. Sharon, you are nodding, which means you're going to go first. You get volunteered.
Okay. I think what I think about a lot when I listen to my husband talk with his brothers about their aging parents is that, people that aren't only children have somebody else who has their lived experience from childhood to talk to about it. And we only children can talk to friends about it. We can talk to our spouse about it or our partner or whoever, but it's not the same. It can't be, no matter how well intentioned everybody is. And it's wonderful. I mean, I'm not saying to my friends out there, please keep talking to me about it. I need you. But it's different. And sometimes I'm going to be really honest, when I hear him talking to his brothers, I almost feel like mad or, not mad, just I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I'm like, I wish I could talk and laugh with somebody about something that, we've all been living through with our parents since we were 5.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I get the anger. I get the jealousy. Of course, it's helpful to have that. It's hard when you don't. Carrie, what would
Yeah,
you
and like
add?
Gary said too.
Oh, go for it.
Oh,
Keep
sorry.
going, Sharon. Go for it. No,
Yeah, I was
go.
just going to add, just piggyback really quick what Gary said about when you've been a long time caregiver and it starts to wear on you, that, that piece of it also, not having somebody there to share it with, even if you don't get along with that person all the time, which I understand a lot of siblings don't.
Yeah, Gary,
That's
what would you add?
She made some good points, Sharon. It's kind of like being a single caregiver is that it's like being just a single child, not even talking about caregiving. A lot of sometimes single kids will say, well, I have not known anything else. So my brother passed away when I was 22. He was 32, 40 years ago this year. I haven't known anything else, right? So we don't know anything else. But speaking to what Sharon said about families that have other siblings, I think the biggest thing gets to me is if they'll say to me, well, I'm doing all that you're doing too. and I have a kid or I have a partner, and my big saying is think it through. And I'm saying, okay, I said to one of my friends, when you go to visit your parent, what about your shopping, or what about your cleaning or your cooking? Oh, well, my kid is doing, oh, my husband is getting, oh, this one cooked that one. I said, you've got that. I said, so when I come home, I doing all my chores. If I want to find something to eat, if I have time to eat, I have to find it, cook it, eat it, clean it. My own full-time job, my own appointments, and people think that, also think, oh, you're doing all this, you must be a wonder person. And we're not. We're actually really treading water more than ever. So that's why from when I came on, I was saying people with multiple families, sometimes I understand that it's by default because no one wants to help, but in a way, they have a little bit of an ability to say sometimes, today, guess what, guys? I'm not doing this. You figure it out because I have to go to the doctor because I have a chest pain. And we don't even have that choice all the time. So it, it, it's a real loaded word. Solo
Yeah,
caregiver.
yeah, yeah. What's interesting is you're always the default because there is no other default.
Very crushing. Very crushing.
Yeah, very crushing. Yeah. Jennifer, what would you add?
Certainly agree with Gary with like the obligation that is constantly sort of sitting on your shoulders, as whether you want to or not, it's sort of just this obligation that you have. But as a former family caregiver, I'm thinking like after both of my parents died, I felt very much like an orphan. I had no one else that had that shared living experience. And there are things that happen now that I'm like, oh, that picture, who is that? I wish I had someone to ask, and people just don't think about that because they have other people in their family. And yes, I have other people in my family, but not locally, so it's just a little different. So that's the thing that struck me, is more so after my parents passed, it affected me more.
I'm curious about making decisions. I think it's helpful when you have someone you can bounce off a decision who has insights about a carry or a perspective about the situation because of the shared family experience. You're the only one navigating a decision that impacts your aging parent. And I'm curious how you have been managing decisions. Sharon, for instance, you mentioned you're moving your dad to another assisted living after only 8 weeks. Now, it sounds like you had no choice, but you are making decisions about where he lives and what's acceptable for you, what your standard of care that you expect is. How are you managing these decisions?
Yeah, it's hard because I am someone who likes to talk about and maybe go over probably too much, but I really think hard about a decision like that affects somebody else. And so I talk to friends, I talk with my husband, and that's all well and good. But again, yeah, if it would be it would be great to have like somebody else also. So you feel that weight that everybody else was talking about. I think Jennifer, you mentioned that that weight of it's and I made this decision. He had to move from his previous place where they had been for 4 years because he needs an easy stand lift now for some of his cares. And so didn't do that. And so I moved him to, I hemmed and hawed and talked with people and made the decision. And then it has turned out to be a terrible decision. And um, I thought that the most expensive place would be the best place, and has not been true in this case. And so there was financial concerns attached. When's his money going to run out? Um, let's hurry up and make some more of our own money so we can pitch in when we need to. All that, and then And now that it's just been, so bad, I had to get him out. And so, I've written letters to the administrators there saying I don't want to pay a dime after he leaves, even though we're under contract. And, there's all this stuff that goes into it. It's not just moving, it's, and being with a 98-year-old with dementia while they move, and getting them used to a new place after just having done it. So yeah, the decision was rough. And then just finding the next new place and deciding about that. Yeah.
It's fighting these battles. And what was really interesting, Sharon, was you were able to bring out, it's not just about where he lives, it's about the costs of the care that he receives. And then it's about advocating because the care he's receiving is not good. The battles are ever present and absolutely energy sucking. And it's you. Gary, I could see you nodding your head. What are you
like
thinking?
the nodding, like the nodding 60s toy. Because and I'm thinking of Sharon and coming back. I love that phrase, lived experience. I know my brother would have helped, and it's even sadder to know I don't have a brother anymore, and it makes me angry too. That he's not here. But I remember that when COVID went down, that March of 2020, the same week we went remote, our community college made HR remote, was the same week my mother and a whole bunch of people she lives at subsidized senior housing for 10 years now. But she, that March 2020, that week, got COVID. And one of her table mates died. Many got on ventilators. She didn't need a ventilator, but she went to our Mass General Hospital on a Monday. They said, you have stomach flu, go home and have crackers. She came back Wednesday. She had to get rushed a second time. They said, oh, you're not going anywhere. You have COVID. She was gone. First time in my life, my mother, since I don't ever know that she ever got hospitalized. 2 weeks in the hospital, then 4 weeks in rehab. And I'm navigating my job, reassigning teachers, all their courses, going remote, which people who aren't in education don't know how crazy that was, and redoing contracts and everything. And I'm doing all that, and I'm handling constant calls from people suddenly telling me, standing in the middle of my living room by myself, if your mother codes, oh, you don't know what code means? Code means, and we had, ask my son. But so many decisions had to be made, and it was empowering because I was trying to help my mother, but it was so freaking scary. Not knowing if I was doing the right thing. No, I don't want anybody to press on me that they might break my ribs. Okay, so we wouldn't do further resuscitation and all that. So very, very, very scary. Having to make decisions, but empowering when you feel you're doing something at the end of the day.
It's really interesting to think about how you do feel the power of your experience in ensuring that your mom's wishes are met and voiced, that you're speaking on behalf of her.
Yeah.
And it's also this idea that it's all on you. I'm curious, who supported you during that time, or what support you reached out to that was helpful?
Me, my faith was really important. I always have it with me. It has a paper clip attached to it. I don't know why I got in there, but my little rosary thing really means a lot to me. And no one's going to tell me it doesn't make a difference. My mother's case manager team, our area on Aging Association, was very helpful. Mystic Elder Care Services. My work has a really great through the state employee assistance program, where everything that I got for my mom after my dad died in 2005 all started from that, and then helps you get your site sites like yours, were so much of a help. There's so much online that can be really help. Just type it, right? Your local elder affairs, the doctor teams, stuff like that. And my friends, I found that I'm going to be 62. I found that I have about 2 or 3 really close friends that we've been together for like 40 something years. And I'm noticing we're all kind of going through the same kind of self long-term problem cares are caregivers, and we bounce it off each other. So I have one friend who was stranded here in 2020 from her partner in California because her dad had advancing Alzheimer's and then her mother fell, and she hasn't left for 4 years. So we've become closer in the past 4 years, and I've maybe only seen her twice, and she lives a mile away from me in these 4 years. But I don't know what I would have done without that. And my mother supports me too, because she'll always let me know, Gary, I know I'm a pain, but I don't know what I would do without you. And I said, I know I'm a pain bigger, but I don't know what I would do without you. And her big saying is, Gary, don't worry, someday you'll be free. And it makes me sad, but at the same time, it's kind of like I try to tell her, but I know, but I got to try to be a little bit free now and balance things up. And you be too.
Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah.
I just need a
So yeah,
little bit of freedom right
yeah.
now.
So
Yeah.
yeah, decisions are hard because, but, and I bet Jennifer will say, I don't know, I can't speak for her. She might piggyback on this. Would I do it differently? Nope, because I really think that I've matured and felt so much more substantive as a person for all this craziness that I've gone through. And I've learned a lot. I've learned I can be tough when I have to be.
Okay, Jennifer, what do you think?
Sorry.
I would agree.
That's
I would
awesome.
agree for sure. You know, it's interesting. I find that like making decisions, I would either show up like I am in charge and nobody's going to tell me, you know. And once my dad died and it was just me and my mom was like my pillar that I would go to for advice. And here she was in the depths of what we now know as dementia. And at the time, I was in complete denial. And so it's like I couldn't go to her when I normally would and say, what do you think? You know, and so I became like this person who was always had this very much, it's all under control, to like second guessing every decision I made because I didn't have the, you know, like I have an amazing partner and she was awesome and also very much a part of the caregiving experience with us, but it just wasn't my mom, you know, and that I think was really the difference.
Well, there's so much to navigate, including changing relationships that you might have with a caree, either because of disease process or because of declines, or just because of the stress of someone in a tough situation. And I'm curious, Sharon, how you've been able to navigate any changes in the relationship with your dad.
Yeah, there's been it actually for me started with my mom because like Jennifer, my mom was my pillar and who I went to for everything. And she was a retired RN. She taught me everything I know about caregiving. She was just amazing. And she had done this for her parents and I watched her and learned. And so when she got sick, which with what we now know was a neurodegenerative disease, but didn't know it was undiagnosed. And so she slowly was unable to, care for my dad and then care for herself. And so I had to really look within and seek out other counsel. Instead of her, my dad, even by that point, wasn't somebody that I could go to for any sort of anything except a hug, you know. And he's the sweetest man. He just isn't. He he's very, very, very intelligent and wasn't very emotionally available ever really. Um, Actually now in his 98th year with his dementia, he says, "I love you," and he says, "Be
Mhm.
careful when I leave," and things like that. But yeah, so it was me and my mom really who were really tight. And so, yeah, losing her gradually, in her decline was the first part of this journey, and then now, like, slowly having watching my dad and helping him and being with him while his dementia progresses and his weakness progresses and things like that, is so I talk to, I've got a great group of friends, um, that come from sort of all different specialties. A lot of them are also in a caregiving role in one way or another for aging parents. And so it's really helpful, like Gary said, to be able to talk with friends about that. And I became really close with all of my parents' caregivers at their various places that they've lived. Really like because I'm there all the time. So it's just and that those friendships are priceless and incredible. And I value, everything that I've learned from them and the care that they've given both my parents. I feel very lucky about that. So I've sort of leaned on lots and lots of different people throughout.
Carrie, what's interesting is you kind of started us with this conversation about relationship, and you really started it because you talked about the relationship that changed with yourself.
Oh, me, yeah.
You started to see yourself in a different way. What do you think is the most significant change that you've had in terms of the relationship that you have with yourself?
And it's funny because I think that your question has to do with what I just thought unrelatedly, just to chat. I think I've internalized my parents. I think I've internal the good part, the good parts. My parents were always very nurturing. Um, my father worked two jobs. He wasn't home a lot because he's either a firefighter and a garment worker, day or night. My mother was a stay-at-home mom by the time she had me. Um, but I feel like she'll say, "You remind me of Dad," and I used to resent that. Like, you want to hold on to every bit of you can when you go through this. But now I'm kind of like, okay, that's good, because I never could figure out how my dad could compartmentalize and handle so many things at once. Now I've learned how to need to do that. Um, I want to say that I'm more resilient, though I don't feel like that in the morning. Uh, I want to say that I get angry and impatient more now when things don't always go right. But I'm learning that if you work with that, you kind of learn your strengths, and you can reflect on that. I write journals. I think I mentioned this to you many years ago. I like to sometimes write a diary on my computer, and depending on how I feel that day, I might change the font. I might change the color, and it makes me look back at what I wrote. And I said, okay, today we're feeling blue, green. Boy, today we're really like lightning anger red. But it really, yeah, it just does. And sometimes I have to, when I internalize my dad, I have to remember, because one thing that I think is important to talk about is some of us sometimes I don't know, we get having to take care of somebody we maybe didn't always get along with very well when we were growing up, or who was distant. Or my mother has always been, I don't want to say she's never been diagnosed a narcissistic person, but very tough, wants things her way, and she makes me chop chop. And she'll want to treat me the way she did my dad, who would always say, "Oh yes, Dottie, okay," because he didn't want to start fights. But I don't want to be scolded like I'm 9 years old when I'm handling all these 18 really important things for her. So I've been learning a lot about myself, and what I like and what I gotta do better at.
I also think it's interesting. We learn what it is that we need to live with ourselves. People would say to me regularly, you care for your parents because you love them. And I would say, I care for my parents because I love myself. Because I knew I couldn't live with myself if I didn't help and care for them. And I think that's what happens during caregiving. You realize, Jennifer and I did a podcast before we did this show, and she was talking about the hill you choose to die on, meaning, are you really going to stick something in the sand and say, this is it, this is the line, when it really doesn't matter? And I think we get this idea in our head of what really matters during caregiving because we're living it. Jennifer, what would you add in terms of changing relationships, either with parents or yourselves?
Um, whenever someone is considering moving in with their parents, I always tell them the issues you had with your mom when you didn't live with her are amplified when you do live with her. And, we sort of fall into that like child role. And I found myself becoming a teenager a whole lot of time when I would be taking care of her. But the other thing that became really an issue for us is she would try and control me through money. And so it was like, well, I'll pay you to go do this. And it was her only way to control her environment or me. And it was often a tool that she would use because it's all she had, and it was like, she didn't want me to go on vacation. I'll pay you $10,000 to not go, and I'm like, Mom, so that became very interesting. It also was interesting when we were negotiating where she was paying me for caring for her. And then she would forget that she told me she would pay me. And I would then have to like advocate and feel really awful. Like, I don't want anyone thinking that I'm stealing from my mom, but like we had this conversation when you were lucid, So I learned a lot about getting things in writing and it's kind of tough sometimes, you feel a little icky.
It's
But
interesting because my dad would give me money. And then I would always tell my siblings, Dad gave me money. I didn't want to be, I didn't want anybody to say, what are
yeah,
you doing that is manipulating our father and that he's giving you money? I'd always say, he's giving me money. And when they actually created the will, there was a little bit in terms of difference of who got what percentage. And I got a more percentage, but I always wanted them to know I'm getting more. And they'd always be like, okay, like you told us that last week. Like we remember. But you just don't want to be in a situation where people think, how are you manipulating this situation to get,
right.
Yeah.
I'm like literally quit my job to do this. This is my job,
Right. Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
It's guilt. I think bottom line,
totally.
it's guilt. I think it's guilt. And oh my gosh, should I really be receiving this? Should I really be
Yeah.
receiving this?
Goes back to like the obligation. Like, shouldn't I just be the good daughter?
Right.
The good daughter and just do this out. Well, I can't do it and work full time and pay my bills. So
Yes.
you either hire me or you hire someone else.
Yes. Let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about guilt and then we'll close up with one last question. So I'm curious how you guys manage guilt. Sharon, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, guilt is there, I think, all the time in different ways. Even though if you go 5 days a week, you feel like I should have gone every day. If you stay 40 minutes, I should have stayed an hour. It's like sort of no matter what you do, it's the guilt is just always there. And it sort of just sits within you. And so managing that, I so agree with what Gary said before about how you really grow and change as a person when you do this for a long time, and how so I think I've gotten a lot better about it. My husband might disagree, but maybe not. But I think I think I'm better at taking some time for myself and maybe staying for 45 minutes instead of 2 hours some days. And things like that where if I know there's just a day where I'm not feeling so great, like I can take a break, um, and call my dad instead of go over. Um, Not too much, but once in a while. Next week I'm going to visit a friend. Um, and I recruit people, I've got some people that will go and visit. My husband will go. He's really busy. He's busy basically, making, you know, more of the money than I am, so we can, just in case, somebody's got to make the money. But he'll go in the evenings, and I have other people that I, ask to go and visit, so we can get away once in a while. So I notice when I do get away, it helps. It actually, weirdly, it's a paradox, right? Because I end up feeling better about myself and life, and then I don't feel as guilty about everyday things that are happening with my dad. So that's kind of what I do. And sometimes I just have to cry, mostly when I'm in my car driving there
Yeah.
or driving back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, this idea of counting. You talked about counting the days of the week where you visit, counting the time that you spend. And it's interesting that we always decide that when I've counted, it doesn't add up to enough, when really it is enough. Because every moment matters. Every
Mhm.
moment matters. It's not just the one moment, it's all the moments that matter. Yeah, Gary, keep going. What are you thinking as you've heard Sharon talk about her
Yeah,
guilt?
good points. I'm going back to growing. Part of the growing is because you can only go through it to grow. I've been learning, especially coming from an Italian family that's also Sicilian within the Italian. Oh, right, right. Um, the guilt thing, I've learned to be less guilty. I'm also what formed my conscious adult life is, and I might have shared over the years with Denise's old group. I have bad health issues all my adult life. I had things with bowel obstructions and multiple surgeries and um, and emergency room, hospital stays, and your life is very precious to you. Your time is very precious. My mother likes to control passively aggressively when I'm on the phone with her, and she'll want to keep on going and going, and she'll make the little crack with her voice. If I got to get off the phone, or if I don't answer the phone because I go right from work to it, she'll just be, "Oh, you must be asleep," and I'm like, gee, I do other things too. Go to the bathroom. And she told me, in fact, on Easter Sunday, she said, "Do you really want to call you at 8 o'clock? Are you taking a nap?" And I said, "No, Mom, actually, when you called me that time, I was taking 15 minutes like this, and I demonstrated my arm on the couch to watch a movie I wanted to watch because I'm a person and I need some of my own time. So if I have to hang up on her now, I don't worry about it. I mean, I don't mean if something's wrong, but if she gets like that, Mom, I got to go." And I'm learning at a certain point sometimes I have to detach the emotion and just let that go.
Because the more you stay on the phone when it's going that way, it continues to go downhill. And
Yeah,
the best way to take care of the relationship is to just say, "This is the boundary. Okay, Mom, I'll see you. I'll see you
yeah.
tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow." And
I'm
that's what
learning that.
yeah,
Oh,
preserves the relationship. Yeah.
yeah. I'm learning because I used to want to challenge every time she used to say something that was a remark and I want to say, "No, you shouldn't think like that because this is." Now I'm starting to learn a little bit more. Yeah, okay, bye. And you know, uh, you guilt can um, can kill us. And she gets guilty, and I get guilty, and I know that. Um, can I add real quick? So one that good friend of mine who's been stranded here for 4 years, she says she doesn't call her father by his name anymore. By dad, she calls him by his given name. And I used to take her to task about that. I go, "That's your dad." She said, "Oh, my dad's been gone for a long time." And she says, "I miss him." And I feel bad, but now I understand because she's the one doing the caring. And I thought that I'm helping because I know that when my dad was going through cancer hospice, he wasn't my dad. But looking back, when they go, you don't think about the bad times, you think about the good times. So I'm the way I was trying to help her, that when your dad goes, I was thinking, you're not going to think about the Alzheimer patient, you're going to think about those younger good memories. But then I said, Gary, you got to, everybody walks in their own shoes. And I can't put myself on that level with people dealing with all the you guys have been through, which I respect you so much. Just different. So sometimes, the terminal stuff is horrible, but when they go on and on and on and on, and you see them slowly deteriorating, there's that guilt too. So guilt's not
And
nice.
it's not. And I think it's very difficult to watch someone disappear every day in front of your eyes. It's a very sad, intensely feeling experience. Jennifer, I'm curious how you think about guilt now when you look back on caring for your mom.
I related a lot to regret. And I would really like, and I used to say I have no regrets. But I do, and I'll give you one example. When my mom died, she was a teacher for 35 years and she was friends with a lot of her students on Facebook. And I would post from her account and tell them what was going on. And they wrote me amazing things about her. I went into science because of your mom's science. She was a science teacher. I went into teaching because of your mom. Your mom, I still remember what she taught me in 4th grade. And I was like, I wish I would have known all of it. I wish I would have remembered that she was like this amazing person and teacher in those moments when I was so angry with her and, couldn't get past some silly thing that we were fighting about. And so I like to tell people when they are in that situation, like your parents had a life before you that we forget about, and we just see the person that's ill in front of us. And it was such a good lesson, but it was too late. I wish I would have remembered that before. So regret.
This has been a fabulous conversation, and we'll close with one question that I'll ask each of you to answer, and that is, what would be one insight or words of wisdom that you would offer to other only children? Sharon, I think we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. I really quick, Jennifer, I hear you on that. Like looking at our parents and remembering all the really cool, amazing things they did and the people they are and were is so helpful. And, sometimes we do it, and I have a feeling your mom knows that Um, so advice for other only children is learn to ask for help.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think it's very hard for us only kids because we're used to doing it all. And so learn to ask and accept help from others. Give yourself grace and give yourself breaks and set those boundaries. Learn to set them and stick with them, even though the intense guilt and pain you're feeling it when you get better at it. It is helpful for you. It's that paradox of self-care, where in order to be a better caregiver, it is really true, you do need to care for yourself. And so I think I wish I would have known that a little earlier in the caregiving game, but that's okay. It's never too late. And it's never too late to learn more about your parents, and to, if you can, look through old pictures with them and try to relive some of those really great moments and get them talking, as best they can, and try to look at things with humor as much as possible, but also acknowledge the feelings of sadness. when you need to. So sort of a potpourri of advice.
Yeah, Gary, what would you add in terms of insight and wisdom?
Sharon nailed it well. I would say, adding to that, my mom always taught me, be your own best friend first and last. So, especially since we're alone, because nobody can stick up for us but ourselves in the end. Even if my mom and dad who were always there for me, if my mom goes, even if she wanted to be here, she can't. So someday, so I got to stand up for myself, and I don't have any siblings to fall back on that. And also, I tell my single caregiving friends who are going through it, and once they've gone through it, your caree was so lucky because they got to experience how much you love them, the way you showed it. And I'm just listening to Sharon and Jennifer, who I never met. Wow, you know, I'll bet that your parents felt that way. I'm getting that impression. I can only imagine how much more, you know. So I do what Jennifer says. I do try to remember about my mom's previous life before being a care recipient. And I try to catch myself more now. Mom, look at this picture. Because she's, a silent generation. I said, what colors were these originally? Because I know your memories are all colors of this, which always freaks me out, right? And not, I only get black and white. Or I'll say, what did you say that grandma said? What was your reaction? Or did you see the Ten Commandments was on? Did you ever see that in the theater when it came out? Wow, what was that like? So I'm trying to catch myself. Um, and I have voicemail messages that she's left me back to 2007 that I've saved for special occasions. And that's important to me too, So, you do the best you can. That's all we can do.
Yes. Yeah. Jennifer, close us out.
I would say just because you can doesn't mean you should. I mean, we think we can take it on and do it all, and we don't have to. And boundaries and all of that. But as we were talking about on the podcast before this, it's like starting those honest conversations with our parents early about how this will affect us. And I love, Gary, that you're like, I need some time for me now too. And that's, so important. We don't have to do everything, even though we could do a lot of it. So.
Can I add something, Denise?
Yes.
Real quickly. I learned a long time ago, because my parents were always very, controlling type, especially after my brother died, because that's the whole PTSD of, okay, we got to watch Gary like a hawk. He's all we've got. You feel that pressure. I just learned, somebody taught me a long time ago, sometimes when you have to set boundaries, you have to make an excuse. And somebody might call it a lie, but it's not a lie, this person explained to me, if you're trying to save hurting someone's feelings. And if I want to, my mother's feeling blue and she'll want to recount constantly about my dad dying and my brother dying, how horrible that was, I know. But if I'm in the middle of something I can't get away from, I'm not going to say, well, Ma, yeah, that sucks, bye. Sometimes I have to say, oh my God, Mom, the laundry stopped. I really got to go right now. You're just trying to help protect them.
Yeah.
From suddenly having to stop the conversation. So I like what Jennifer said. Sometimes just because you can doesn't mean you should. So
I teach a facilitator training for support group leaders. And what a part of the training is to manage challenging behaviors that come up, because support group members are stressed out. They're going to bring difficult situations into a conversation. And I talk about how to manage challenging behaviors. And so I have questioned myself, am I teaching people how to manipulate others? And I thought, no. Individuals are actually demonstrating what they need. It just so happens that it's a challenging behavior that tells us what they need, and we're just meeting the need. with what we say or what we do. And I find that really helpful just to remember we're just meeting a need. Someone has given us an inkling of what they need, and we can meet that need. This was fabulous. Sharon, Gary, and Jennifer, thank you guys so much. And I want to mention, if you'd like to keep connected with our panelists today, you can join us on caringourway.com. They are members of our community. You can reach out to them. They'd love to connect with you. Thanks you guys so much.
Denise, can I ask, is this going to be part of an article? Did you say it?
We're going to be, it's a archived talk show and podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, you're going to be famous, Gary. Hold on. Hold on for the ride. Hold on for the ride. Okay, I'm going to close this out. Thanks, everybody. Thanks again to our
Thank you,
panelists.
guys.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who watched. Thanks who joined us live. It was great to have you with us. We love it when individuals join us live. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you for helping me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.